welcome everybody to today's program on infant abductions. And we're going to talk about also including pediatric abductions, how to prevent those from occurring. And we will talk about the Joint Commission and the CMS hospital conditions of participation changes. And basically, there are 5 things that every facility that has children and infants should be doing to prevent infant abduction. And that's what we're going to cover today. So we've got a lot of information to show you. We've got actually about 225 slides. And we also want to show you some examples of real infant abductions, because we can really learn a lot from a few of the new changes. So this was an article I saw in a newspaper one time. Who would steal a baby and why? Well, first of all, as hospitals and birthing centers and other places with newborn infants, you always want to include in your program who would steal a baby. That is something that's in our policies, it's in our teaching, and we're actually going to cover that today. We're actually going to cover the why. So this is another article of how safe is your baby. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So the issues that we're going to cover, the most important thing are the 5 steps that every hospital and birthing center should be doing to prevent infant abduction. We are going to talk about the Center for Missing and Exploited Children, which actually has the guidelines on prevention and response to infant abduction. And it also includes a self-assessment tool. It's 116 pages. It is considered to be the definitive standard of care related to that. And even the Joint Commission that had a fentanyl event retired theirs and said they just refer to these guidelines. We will talk about competency tools to make sure that your staff that deal with infants and children are competent. We will talk about the CMS conditions of participation requirements under tag 144 and 701. And also, if you have a question, I'm also going to show you, it's a new, there's 2 email addresses, one that's recently new, on how you can send any question that you have directly to CMS in an email and get it in writing the same way you can do that for the Joint Commission. And we specifically mentioned the Joint Commission because of the 4 accreditation organizations. The Joint Commission has 3,095 hospitals. We are also going to cover their Sentinel event alert on infant abductions. Even though they did retire it, this is, again, May the 6th of 2020, so about 5 years ago they retired it, but it still has useful information in it that we did learn for that. We're going to talk about root cause analysis and when you need to do systematic or root cause analysis. We're going to talk about failure mode and effect analysis. And every hospital or birthing center should already have done one of these. And if you haven't done one for a while, you might want to do another one. We'll talk about liability issues. We'll talk about education, mock drills, and more. These are some of the key issues that we are going to cover today. What physical and security measures should be taken. Everyone needs to have a policy and procedure. What should be in that policy? We've all seen CSI and the unspeakable nightmare. If one does occur, then what is your critical incident response plan? We'll talk about liability issues. We'll talk about how to do a self-assessment. And as I mentioned, we'll do the Joint Commission standards and also the CMS hospital conditions of participation. The Joint Commission does have a frequently asked question on infant abduction. We'll talk about the 6 root causes of infant abductions, what allowed them to happen. And we've seen a nuance in some of the 2016-2017. We'll talk about the importance of doing a mock drill and the importance of doing a parent handout. So probably it was, we've been very fortunate the last few years. We haven't had, it's just getting tougher because we're doing these 5 things to get them out of the hospital. But years back, I worked with 3 specific hospitals. And in one hospital, the person got the infant out to the elevator, at which time the elevator closed down because of the umbilical transmitter. However, had they done all 5 things, the abductor would never have gotten the infant and would have never gotten that far. So there were still a lot of, even though they, their backup system was successful, they still learned a lot and changed their process to include all 5 things, including, the mother's education. Why did the mother not realize that the nurses all had one color of scrubs, and that they had an ID badge that always had a backup one that said baby? The mothers were never trained about that, or the mother never would have handed her infant to somebody who was able to do that. Also, in Congress, and this is the 2019-2020 Congress, had introduced the Infant Protection and Baby Switching Prevention Act of 2019, and it would require that all hospitals that get Medicare reimbursement follow this. It would require all hospitals, including critical access hospitals, to establish and implement security procedures to reduce the likelihood of infant abductions, and a process for identifying all infants in the hospital. And if you didn't do this, there could be a fine. This had, in the first month of January of last year, 7 different committees looked at it, and it didn't look to me when I looked at it yesterday that there's really been any activity, so it doesn't look like it's really going anywhere. But if you want to read it, here's what it looks like. And my letter was that it's really not necessary to have an additional one. The liability exposure is so great. Accreditation organizations already require this. And the fact is that we're doing a very good job. So hopefully for most of you, when you go through this, to say, oh yes, we're doing that, maybe you can tweak the system, but hopefully you're doing the 5 things that you need to do that. Although I have to tell you that I visited a few places where they have gotten lax on their infant security. And in fact, a couple of years ago, I was at a facility that had just built a new OB unit, and they kind of had put the unit kind of on the end. There was no security. There was no checking of visitors. They just would come in. It was kind of on the end near a road, which would be easy to, to scoop a child and run. It wasn't quite laid out. When we did some checking, there was a door that was supposed to alarm that didn't. The windows, one of the windows opened enough that someone could have handed an infant out the window. They weren't supposed to do that, but opening 8 inches would have been enough to do that. So we made a number of recommendations regarding infant security. So what we're going to do, and by the way, there are a lot of other infants in other countries right now. In fact, 2 years ago, I was asked to come spend a whole summer in Iran because they'd had so many infant abductions that they wanted me to go around and, teach the hospitals and teach the nurses. Obviously, I didn't have time to do that, but they had 5 in that year, which, everybody was kind of up in arms. So we do read a lot now about infant abductions in other countries, from hospitals. So hospitals have made great progress in the last 25 years. In fact, the last infant abduction from a hospital or healthcare facility was in April of the 23rd of 2016 from Monroe, Louisiana. And the data is accurate, has until the end of October of 2018. We have had a total from 1983 of 327 infants. And we are going to talk, though, about infant abductions where the mother has been killed. And we're going to talk about that because one of the things we need to do as hospitals and healthcare providers when people are delivering babies is to say, it's getting hard to get them out of the, to get a child out of the hospital. So what happens is people are attempting to abduct them out of the home, and in fact, of that 327, 140, which is the same amount that were abducted from a hospital, have now been abducted from a home. And we're gonna talk about that because we need to give them instructions on when they go home on what they need to do to keep their baby safe. And I highly suggest that you put it in writing and that you give it to them, during their hospitalization and also before they are discharged. In 2016, we had 6 infants abducted. One of them was from, again, a hospital, and the other 4 of them were from home, affecting states like Florida, Pennsylvania, Louisiana, Kansas, Ohio, and Oklahoma. This was the first abduction, and I know of at least 13 cases where this has happened. And this is why we need to tell women that are pregnant, especially in their last trimester, if you're going to sell your car, you don't get in the car with somebody you don't know by yourself. You take a friend or your husband or whoever, another significant individual. And this being the first infant abduction in North Dakota,